Okay, start on February 1, 2021, in the wake of the intensification of the farmers' protests and reports of violent incidents on January 26. A number of Twitter accounts became inaccessible in India. These included, among many others, the accounts of the Caravan magazine, the actor Sushant Singh, and the Kisan Ekta Morcha handle, which has chronicling the protests. In the beginning, it was unclear whether this was Twitter's decision based on its belief that the accounts had violated its terms and conditions. The reasons for its permanent suspension of Donald Trump from its platform, for example, or whether Twitter had been ordered to do so by the government or by a court. As outrage mounted, the government of India clarified that it has evoked Section 69A of the Information Technology Act and ordered Twitter to block access to these accounts. The reason it appeared was the use of hashtag Modi planning farmer genocide, which was deemed a threat to public order. The merits of this argument aside, the government's Section 69A order was clearly an overreach, even on its own terms, as media outlets such as the Caravan had not used the hashtag. Soon after, Twitter restored access to many of the withheld accounts. This prompted a sharp reaction from the government, including a non compliance notice and veiled threats that Twitter's employees would be prosecuted for violating Section 69A. A meeting between Twitter's officials and the government appears to have yielded for now an uneasy truce. On February 10, Twitter also published a blog post where it remarkably and, in my view, correctly argued that the government's own actions in directing it to withhold access to the accounts of journalists, activists, and politicians violated Indian law and the constitutional guarantee of the freedom of speech. These events of the last few days throw into sharp relief the unsatisfactory state of Indian law and how it is interpreted and applied by censorship happy governments. At present, the online free speech rights of Indian citizens depend entirely upon the extent to which multinational social media platforms are able to stand up to the government's censorship requests, how willing they are to risk legal prosecution, and how much confidence they have that their interpretation of Indian free speech law will stand up in court even over the claims of the government. It should be clear that this is not a sustainable situation. The root of the problem is Section 69A of the IT Act. Section 69A grants to the government the power to issue directions to intermediaries for blocking access to any information that it considers prejudicial to, among other things, the sovereignty and integrity of India, national security, or public order. Section 69A of 3 envisages a jail sentence for up to 7 years for intermediaries who fail to comply. In 2009, the government also issued blocking rules which set up the procedure for blocking, including regular review by government committees, and also stated that all requests and complaints would remain strictly confidential. There are a number of problems with this legal structure. The first is that it makes censorship an easy and almost completely costless option for the government rather than having to go to court and prove a violation, even prima facie, of law. The government can simply direct intermediaries to block content and place the burden of governing to court upon the users. It stands to reason that the easier it is to censorship speech, the more likely it is that the government, any government, will resort to that option. Furthermore, the confidentiality requirement means that the user will not even know why their account has been blocked, and the and therefore will be in no position to challenge it. Third, there is no procedural safeguards, no opportunity for a hearing to affected parties, and no need for reasoned orders. This then violates both free speech rights as well as the right to due process. In the famous case that is well known for the striking down of Section 66A of the IT Act, the scope of Section 69A and the blocking rules were also litigated before the Supreme Court. Unfortunately, however, the Supreme Court missed an opportunity to guide the law in a pro free speech direction as it had with Section 66A without engaging in any detailed analysis. The court largely endorsed the legal regime as it stood. The court only noted that every affected individual would retain the constitutional right to challenge a blocking order through a writ petition before the High Court. Now, it would appear to follow from this holding that the Shreya Singhal judgment made it mandatory for the government to furnish blocking orders along with the reasons to affected parties. It is evidently impossible to challenge something that you cannot even see. However, as recent events show in practice, that is not being followed. The lack of clarity in the judgment is no doubt a contributory factor. In a recent article in the Indian Express, also pointed out that after the Supreme Court's judgment in the Kashmir internet ban case, it is at least now an arguable position of law that any order restricting access to the internet.